What could Prince Harry and Meghan be trying to hide? Has the King delivered a fatal blow to Prince Andrew in the siege of Royal Lodge? Is there some good news for William and Catherine? And what did the Queen really think about Donald Trump? Well, we'll answer all of those questions and a lot more in a very busy episode. Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jess King, standing in for Joe Elvin this week, and my panel is the Daily Mail's royal editor Rebecca English and the paper's diary editor Richard Eden. Welcome to you both. Before we get into it, at the time of recording we have 296,000 subscribers. Can you help us get to that 300,000 mark? Well, one way to do that is to keep sharing this show with friends, family and anyone who you think might enjoy it. And of course, if you haven't already, all you need to do is press that subscribe button on the Daily Mail Royals page and you will never miss another episode. Well, with so much to talk about, let's bring in the panel now. Rebecca, you have been talking recently about the King and some amorous cows, but this week we've had the King and a naughty pony. Tell us more.
Yeah, that does feel like a lifetime ago, the cows, doesn't it, Richard? That was at the beginning of the summer. So in a nutshell, the King's been in Scotland for several weeks already, but he's delayed his arrival at Balmoral because, of course, this year for the first time he was opening some of the private castle to the public. But he arrived this week for his annual summer stay where all the family join him. And just like Queen Elizabeth, there was a full military welcome, including a very naughty little Shetland pony who once with Queen Elizabeth tried to eat her posy, and you actually heard her go, "Oh, stop it, go away." Obviously being a very experienced horsewoman that she is, but fortunately he behaved himself impeccably with the King.
Oh, very good, very good. Pleased to hear it. And to a more serious story now. You have been with the King this week for a very moving and serious engagement.
Yeah, I travelled with him to Southport on Tuesday, where I'm not sure if our international viewers are aware, there was a horrific incident last month in which 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift themed holiday camp were murdered. And the King wanted to go and pay his respects, so he met with the families of some of the children that survived, as well as the children themselves. He viewed the huge fall tributes there were. He met with emergency responders, and actually he flew, I was told, flew back down to London straight afterwards, and the next day in London actually met with the families of the murdered girls themselves. We don't know very much detail about that part of the visit because understandably he thinks it should remain private between him and them, but he just wanted to express his condolences, and it was, you could see he was really moved, and actually what was interesting is see how moved people were to have him there.
You could see it really meant a lot to the community, but Richard, some people were criticising the timing of this visit.
Well, it's just because the King's visit was more than 3 weeks after the murders, and there'd been, for example, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer visited the next day to lay flowers. So there'd been criticism, why is the King taken so long? But it's very tricky because the royal family generally, particularly the monarch, have to do what they're advised by the government. And there was so much anger over these murders that there were riots locally, and unfortunately there have been riots in other places in the country too. So it was a very kind of febrile atmosphere which they wouldn't have wanted the King to get involved in any way. So I presume the government or officials wanted things to quieten down a bit before he came. So it really is very much out of his hands.
And just to add to that, actually, I asked that question of quite a lot of people there I met on the ground, and all of them said he's absolutely done the right thing. As a community, we needed time to grieve. The emergency services were so overstretched with the rioting and the disorder afterwards. People were saying to him, once we've had your visit, we're now finding him go off duty 3 weeks later. So everybody I spoke to genuinely said he did the right thing.
So actually he got the timing just right.
Yeah.
Rebecca, this visit to Southport was during the King's holiday in Balmoral. He's been spending time there with Prince Andrew. Now, why might that have been a little bit awkward?
Yeah, this was a bit of a bolt from the blue, and as you said in the introduction to the show, we have something called the siege of Royal Lodge, which is the fact that, in a nutshell, the King wants Prince Andrew out of his 30 bedroom mansion Royal Lodge, and Andrew very much is the man that doesn't want to go. And the Sun on Sunday revealed at the weekend that the King had pulled his financial support for Andrew's security in the house. So his 10 privately employed security officers will be leaving in October. And if Andrew wants to stay there, he's going to have to foot the bill himself, presumably. It's quite a bold move by the King, and one actually sources had trailed to me earlier on in the year might happen, because the King is funding this out of his own pocket, and they said to me, like, his patience is not limitless on this, and he suddenly decided to move. So I think, you know, on that big game of chess between the brothers, he's moved now and he's to see what Andrew's going to do back.
So Richard, this is quite a big change. Do you think there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but do you think the brothers are talking directly or not?
It's a very awkward situation because you know, they're on holiday together,
yeah.
So they're at Balmoral. I should say that Andrew and Fergie they're staying at Craiggowan Lodge, which is about a mile from the castle. But they will be invited to dinners, to a grouse shoot, a picnic, things like that. So there will definitely be the opportunity, but whether that would be the appropriate time to kind of raise something as difficult and awkward, my strong suspicion is certainly the King wouldn't want to. He'll be much more likely to talk about the state of the grouse moors than the state of Royal Lodge.
A little bit tricky over the breakfast table, I would imagine.
Yeah, and it has been kind of dealt with by lawyers and officials of the Crown Estate and this sort of thing. So, yeah, there could be a bit of a tense atmosphere up there in Aberdeenshire.
Rebecca, do you think the King will get his way on this one?
It's a good question. It's quite a tricky one because the Kings normally do get their own way. But, you know, friends of Andrew point out he has a cast iron 75-year lease on this property. He has so far met every clause of that lease. He spent £1 million of his own money refurbishing it after the death of the Queen Mother, who was a previous inhabitant of the house. The house needed a lot of updating after that. And they're making clear he's not going to go. I mean, it's a real stalemate at the moment. And I think one that both sides could do with trying to clear up sooner rather than later, but they are poles apart on this issue.
So there's a big row going on, just not directly?
No, and actually rows rarely go on between family members. It's done through private secretaries and officials. You know, they're a family who actually don't like, and the King particularly, personal confrontations. So
well, it makes it easy, doesn't it? Because if Andrew raises it, he can say, "Oh, look, my officials are dealing with this. You know, I don't want to get involved," or something. So
but it is like kids in a playground saying, you tell so-and-so that, you know, this is what I think about it and I'm not going to talk about it. I mean, it's, you know, I think this is why these problems become quite entrenched.
And Richard, you've written about this. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, the piece is basically just reflecting the bemusement by Andrew and their friends as to why the King appears so keen to get rid of them. You know, it's a property that's owned by the Crown Estate. On the face of it, there's no great reason to get rid of him other than the costs of security which the King is paying for. But the King has a lot of money. It's not exactly pressed for money, so it just seems pretty petty that he's trying to get rid of him. And what's the real agenda? There have been suggestions which we have discussed here before that perhaps the King sees it as a future home for Camilla if she outlives him. But it's not clear. But that point of my piece anyway is, you know, stop fussing about this lodge, which is part of the royal family, and concentrate on Harry and Meghan. You know, we've seen recently with them, they're causing all this trouble with their foreign trips and so forth. Let's not forget that Andrew, as well as Harry, are still councillors of state. They still have the legal right to stand in for the King, and they're in the line of succession. So we've got far more pressing issues to address than who happens to live at Royal Lodge.
So you don't think it's about public perception still of Prince Andrew?
I think it's maybe some people around the King think it would be a good idea if, you know, the King was seen as decisive, kicking his brother out. But why? And certainly it's been made clear to me that Prince William and his family are not itching to move in. They're elsewhere on the estate, and that, you know, there's big bills that will have to be paid for repairing Royal Lodge, and the last thing William and Catherine want is to be, you know, lumbered with a PR disaster of having to spend millions on another house. So it's all very strange.
Another brothers feud, can we believe it? Rebecca, another piece you've written, a slightly different topic now, which suggests there is some cautious optimism about Catherine in palace circles. What more can you tell us about how she's doing?
Yeah, I was keen to write a piece last week to kind of explain to Daily Mail readers where things are now, because we saw the couple appear in a video to thank Britain's Olympic Team GB athletes. There's a lot of kind of commentary and conjecture after that. And the point I made was that it has been a very, very difficult year for them, more difficult than anybody realises. I think, without going into too much detail, I think people either have forgotten or don't realise that she really wasn't very well in the run-up to her surgery in January, to the extent that it would have taken her several months probably to recover from that, let alone, of course, the sad and worrying fact that the surgeons found there had been evidence of cancer. So to those kind of champing at the bit slightly, saying, oh, we're seeing these video appearances, will we see her returning to full duties in the autumn? And the answer to that is no, it will still be slow progress. But on the good side is that they are in a much better position now than they have been all year. And the people I speak to seem much more upbeat and optimistic, to the extent that William's planning a trip abroad in the autumn for work. There was a report last week that they attended an outdoors event with their children in Norfolk, and the princess was even taking part in a Nerf gun battle with their children. So there definitely seems a feeling of optimism. I was just saying, just hold her horses slightly a little bit as well.
I think we must talk about Prince William's beard, because that has been the real story here, and he's become a bit of a heartthrob all over again. What did you make of it, Richard? Yeah,
this was the video which they released to congratulate the Team GB at the Olympics, and it was very informal, and it was an insight into their summer holiday, because during the holidays it's clear that Prince William hasn't been shaving. I know the feeling myself sometimes. It's nice not to have to shave. And it brought back memories, because he did used to have a beard when he was serving as a helicopter pilot, and he shaved it off, and it became the whole issue of beards, as readers of Prince Harry's memoirs will know, became very controversial, because according to the book, William had said that Harry shouldn't be able to get married wearing a beard and all this sort of thing. But things have moved on since then, because actually the rules have changed in the armed forces, and now officers are allowed to have beards. So,
well, I don't know what you thought, Rebecca, but I thought he looked great with a beard.
I actually thought it really suited him.
Yeah.
I personally, and actually, I touched on this in the piece I wrote about William and Catherine the other week. There's a lot of people, he's getting quite a lot of people going, come on, keep it in the autumn. I dare you,
Do you think he'll still have it in the autumn?
Ooh, I think my gut feeling is he will probably shave it off again, but I don't think he should.
Oh, interesting. Maybe we should have a bet on this. I've got a feeling maybe he will this time,
I think he should.
How much would you put on that, Richard?
Yeah, okay.
How much would you wager on that, do you reckon?
Not for money, not for money.
Has it inspired you to grow one, Richard?
Oh, no, I think that awful stage that William illustrated, where I'm sure once he's got his full beard, he'll look very distinguished. But in the meantime, it's, imagine me here with, just a load of stubble.
Shocking, wouldn't it be?
Oh, go on, do it, Richard.
You just feel
I think our viewers would love to see it. So
yeah,
I feel dirty if I haven't shaved for a while, It's...
I'm not going to say it, oh, Rebecca. Not going to say it. Not going to say it.
He's not giving in, is he?
Well, we have had a couple of weeks here on Palace Confidential with some special shows. So let's have a listen to some of the comments from those. We'll start with one that came after our special programme with Richard Kay. There was lots of interesting stuff in that about Princess Diana, by the way, so do check back to watch that after this if you are interested. The French Gardener wrote to us and said, here in America, Hollywood is known for being the nest of self-entitled, overindulgent egos with a propensity for delusions of grandeur. So Harry and Meghan will fit right in. Also from that show was this comment from Deborah Osborne, who said, Sophie is quietly taking over Anne's position. Amazing where Sophie pops up. Love them both. Maybe that's one to discuss on another episode of Palace. Meanwhile, from our marathon episode last week, where we looked back at the royal year so far, Patty Frank says that she is an example of what the Princess of Wales has done for royal followers. She said, "I'm post-hysterectomy 8 weeks and haven't been able to do much exercise. I have an appointment in a few days to make sure I've mended well, and Princess Catherine has been an inspiration to me." Well, wishing you all the best, Patty. And Yorkshire Regal writes to us, "It was lovely to see Catherine, Princess of Wales, looking so healthy and beautiful on the video. Wishing congratulations to Team GB. William looking cool with his holiday beard. God bless the Wales family." Well, please do keep those comments coming in. We do love to read them. Well, let's bring back our panel now. We'll get to the somewhat bizarre scenes of the Sussex trip to Colombia. Let's start this section with the extraordinary revelations, though, that in a new book that claims the Queen thought Donald Trump was rude. Now, Rebecca, this has been a bit of a controversial topic. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, Craig Brown, who's a very well-connected and very well-respected writer, has written a new book about Queen Elizabeth, which has been serialised in the Mail this week. And one of the slightly, as they say, marmalade-dropping revelations, favourite term in our business, was that after meeting President Trump, the Queen is supposed to have told a lunch guest a few weeks later that she found him very rude, particularly because he appeared to be looking over her shoulder to see who else was in the room all the time. And she remarked on his marriage to Melania. Now, all through the book, absolutely stands by this, and he used to say he is very impeccably connected. The Palace haven't commented because they just generally don't tend to comment on biographies. It's a rabbit hole they don't want to go down. There has been some disbelief that the Queen would say it, because obviously she was largely the soul of discretion throughout her reign. So I think you pays your money, you take your choice on this one.
Well, we've heard from Donald Trump that can't possibly be true, and that, you know, he was her favourite president of all time. Regardless of the subject, we're all fascinated by these stories, but as Rebecca said, we don't really know the Queen's opinion on a lot of things.
No, we don't. And as a social diarist, you know, gossip columnist, I'm used to this type of thing. And I'm sure that, you know, Craig Brown is reporting faithfully what someone has told him. But, you know, has it been embellished? Has it been someone thinking something? You know, you're never quite sure exactly what was said. And of course, we'll never know because, you know, Her Majesty is no longer here to tell us. So who knows? But I guess it's a sort of interesting insight, and I'm sure it will have annoyed Donald Trump, certainly.
And Rebecca, you were there when Trump made that visit. I mean, what impression did you get?
Yeah, I was, and actually, really interestingly, all of the staff I spoke to that had any dealings with him whatsoever said he was charm personified, and they were quite surprised. Obviously, he's a man who has a particular reputation, and they said he couldn't have been a more polite, charming, helpful, happy to be helped guest. They could see that he genuinely was in awe of Queen Elizabeth. It's often he's voiced that admiration he's got for her many times. And I remember at one moment we were in the Queen's Gallery, and after lunch they do a display of items from the Royal Collection that have a theme. So obviously it was Anglo-American artefacts from over the years that have been collected by successive royal families. And he saw a small group of people, including me, journalists, covering this. And he was standing there with his hands clasped like this because he'd clearly been told, don't put your hands anywhere they shouldn't be, because obviously that would be considered a breach of protocol. And he kind of looked at us, and he literally shrugged like a kind of, looked at us like a, you know, really excited schoolboy, and gave a big grin, because it was like, I cannot believe I'm here with Her Majesty doing this. So, I mean, that's only anecdotal. All I can say is that people found him a really genuinely great guest to have. So,
well, as you say, we will never know, I suppose. We'll get on to another controversial visit involving the royals in just a moment. But Richard, I want to ask you about another high-profile departure from Team Sussex. Tell us more.
Yeah, this was quite surprising because it was someone whose arrival had been very much hyped up. It's Prince Harry's grandly titled Chief of Staff, Josh Kettler, and he'd only been in the job for about 3 months, but his appointment was meant to signal, you know, a new phase in Harry's life, and that he would really be sort of organising things. And to give you an illustration, he was actually the one who was organising this trip to Colombia. But anyway, I heard that he'd quit, and and then it's all a bit unseemly, because then People magazine, which is often very friendly to the Sussexes, was then briefed by someone clearly close to them that actually it was all mutual, and they decided that he wasn't right for the job or something, which I thought was a bit distasteful, because everything I heard, no, he decided, no, I do not want to do this job any longer.
Well, 3 months isn't exactly long in the job, is it?
No, I'm still trying to discover exactly what went wrong, but what is a fact is he did not want to stay in that job.
Well, I've no doubt you will get to the bottom of it, Richard. And Rebecca, the row recalls the bullying allegations made against Meghan Markle, despite obviously the Duchess's denials. There's no suggestion that anyone was bullied here, but I guess that story always kind of resurfaces when these things happen.
Yeah, and I should say congratulations. That was it. Richard's too modest to say, but it was his exclusive, and everybody followed up, and it was a really cracking story. And I think what it does highlight is effectively the revolving door that the Sussexes have when it comes to staff, which inevitably ask the question why. And I was speaking to a couple of people very plumbed in with this in the last few days since Richard's exclusive. They were pointing out that a lot of people report they've lost 18 people that we know about since they've been in America and in the kind of, the year or so leading up to that. But that doesn't even count the 14 people who were made redundant within the royal household when they decided to suddenly up sticks, quit their jobs and move to America. Now, some of those people were reabsorbed back into the royal household, but not many. Most people effectively were made redundant, and that doesn't even begin to count the domestic staff, housekeepers, correspondence people. So there's a lot of people who either left or have lost their jobs as a result of the Sussexes.
And I should make the point as well that lots of these people, these 18, these are not kind of people with kind of, dubious backgrounds, whatever. They're very respected people. If you look like with Josh Kettler, he's worked for big companies, he stayed for years at other places. So he obviously took the job wanting to make a go of it, and these are people which are leaving. So obviously that does make you wonder why.
Well, I've been told that it often the actual reality of the job doesn't match up to the job description that they've been given. You can read into that what you will. Yes,
I think he discovered that perhaps he wasn't quite the chief in that household.
Well, the Sussexes have been travelling. They've been on what we might call a sort of faux royal visit to Colombia. What's that all been about, Richard?
Well, it's a very good question, because what is it all about? It's, I think on the face of it, they were invited by the vice president of Colombia, and it's almost embarrassing to actually say this, but she said that she invited them because she saw them on Netflix and thought it would be nice. I mean, where'd you stop? Would she just invite the stars of her favourite comedy or something? But
well, they were obviously enamoured with the invitation enough to go.
Yeah, so they went, and they said it was to illustrate sort of the work they're doing and find out more about the culture of Colombia and this sort of thing. But I have to say that I've been hearing from a lot of people in Colombia who are very unhappy because, we've been discussing how much security costs in this country, and that's the same in Colombia. They've had massive security at a cost to the taxpayer in a country with, a lot of serious problems. So they've just seen this as some sort of vanity project for the vice president, and there is genuinely a lot of anger about it and questions as to why. From their perspective, sure, Harry's been on these type of tours before, but when he was a member of the royal family, but now they're not. What purpose does it serve?
Well, I was going to add to that, Richard, just to say that I was speaking with somebody very senior in royal circles in recent days, and they said to me, Rebecca, genuine question, what did they hope to achieve by this? They weren't saying it with any sarcasm. They're like, because people are trying to work out. And I said, I think personally, and I don't have any contacts with Harry and his team, so I can't tell you what they think, but I think it's about relevancy. It's about desperately trying to establish the fact that they are still relevant people on the world stage. And much as Harry's railed against the whole way that the institution works, doing these kind of royal tour style things are the only thing he's ever known. So I think he's almost clinging onto it like a comfort blanket. But I think what they forget is when members of the royal family are sent to these countries, it's on the request of the government with a really clear purpose. Their diaries are very strictly controlled to actually achieve that purpose, which is normally to benefit Britain PLC, politically, economically, culturally,
as
military
we saw when
ties.
Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, visited Colombia not so long ago.
Exactly, there was a very clear objective, and I think this was the problem with this trip, is what was the objective, apart from just getting lots of nice pictures of Harry and Meghan smiling with people looking admiringly at them? I mean, I genuinely don't see what the objective of it was.
And we were talking about the sort of royal trips and the amount of media that would go usually on some of these visits. And with this, they had very limited media access.
Yeah, and I think actually, Jess, this was fascinating because obviously Harry again has railed long and hard against journalists like me, for example, who cover these royal trips. Generally, what he believes is a very close relationship between the press and the palace. And yes, you do get to know these people because you work alongside them. But I can actually say, a hand on heart, they do not try to control what you write. There are too many trips for me to account here where I've written stories that have caused big problems for them. But because they're true, they accept we have a free press and we have a right to publish them. But in this case, Harry's team turned down every application from everything from the BBC to the ITV to even, very pro Harry and Meghan newspapers like the Telegraph in UK. All of those were turned down, and they invited one single digital journalist from Harper's Bazaar that didn't have a news background to cover their trip. But what they did was they asked that person to put out reports each day to any media that was interested. But of course,
everyone's interested.
Well, everyone's interested, but they weren't news reports. I know people who received them and said it was like reading something out of Mills and Boon. It was very saccharine. There were no news values in it. A lot of things were actually missed. Because they were deemed not worthy by whom, whether it was the journalist or the Sussexes, we don't know, but it wasn't a proper news gathering exercise.
And Richard, a lot of the audio that was sent out by Team Sussex was silent. Is that normal?
This was so weird. Yeah, I mean, they sent video for people to use. There was no sound whatsoever. So there was one case where they were playing the drums. You couldn't hear any drums, it was silent. I mean, what on earth have they got to hide? It just seemed really weird. And I guess what it was they didn't want people to pick up on, Harry moaning that he was hungry, wanted to go home or something.
But do you think this is about them having more control of the media? They've talked in the past endlessly about, how they're treated unfairly. Maybe this is them saying, we're just picking this one journalist, and this is the narrative that we're presenting.
But it's such hypocrisy because Harry railed against the royal rota, as he called it, and how the press was manipulated, and then here they are just having one cherry-picked journalist providing sort of propaganda about their trip.
It's very North Korea, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have to say, and quite hypocritical, since kind of Harry has set himself up as a kind of commissioner against misinformation, where they're only just putting out one side of what they want people to see and not letting anyone assess that independently properly.
And there's one particular video where they're having lunch, where there's some quite bizarre moments. Rebecca, tell us about that.
Yeah, I saw this on social media and it just really resonated with me how much Harry's life had changed. So there was a lunch thrown in their honour, but I say their honour by the Vice President, but it actually seemed to be in the Duchess of Sussex's honour, not her husband. They were seated on a table and the Vice President of Colombia was next to Meghan, and Harry was seated, the way the tables were situated, he was seated kind of across the table legs, really not even within touching distance of his wife, almost there as an afterthought. And everything was being addressed to Meghan. There was a chef addressing them, presenting her with a gift. Harry got so bored he started eating his pudding.
Maybe it was particularly tasty.
I mean, it looked good, to be fair, and I've been to Colombia on a royal trip, I have to say, and so the food, I could test to it, the food's excellent. And then the chef came over and spoke to him, so he suddenly had to try and talk to him, like not showing the fact that his mouth was full. It was just utterly bizarre.
Not standing up when the man was speaking to him?
He just seemed like, Meghan stood up at one part we see something, Harry just kind of sat there still with his knife and fork in
I
his
sympathise with Harry a bit.
The pudding was really good. The pudding was really good.
I sympathise with Harry a bit here, because come on, you can't get between a man and his pudding. You know, he was hungry.
But I thought it made him look like an irrelevancy, and considering he is fifth in line to the throne and was, you know, holding court in his own right when he was a member of the royal family in the UK.
Are you suggesting he still feels like a spare part, Rebecca?
You could say that, Richard.
Richard, do you think we'll see more of these trips with the Sussexes?
I think we definitely will. I mean, they made clear after the trip to Nigeria that there would be more, and presumably at that point they already had this one planned. And think about it, they've been to Africa, Nigeria, they've been to South America with Colombia. My suspicion would be it could be Asia next. Will we be seeing them in India? India's somewhere that Meghan visited for a charity visit before she met Harry, actually. So it wouldn't surprise me if India was next on their agenda.
And do you think they'll look back on these trips that they've done as a success? I mean, how do you think they're viewing how it's going down?
Well, I mean, it depends what they want, but certainly it attracted lots of coverage. So, and remember that, you know, why are they doing it and when are they doing it? It's August. You know, that's by coincidence when the royal family are not carrying out engagements. And I think that really is not a coincidence at all. So, yeah, you can look forward to your trip to India next August.
Well, maybe that's what we will be talking about next on Palace. Thank you both very much. There have been other trips to South America by the royal family. These ones slightly more official. But here are some of our favourite pictures from those moments. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. A reminder to please subscribe to our channel if you don't already and help us get over that 300,000 mark. My thanks today to Rebecca and Richard, and of course to all of you for watching Palace. We'll be back next week.